Hey, everybody, welcome to today's episode of the What Worked For You show. This episode, primarily for the real estate guys, but the lessons that we're going to talk about today really could apply to any business, and that is the subject of marketing. If you get online today, everyone, and I do mean everyone, has got an opinion on what the best marketing is. And there's a ton of noise in the marketplace, which can leave people, even seasoned professionals, to think to themselves, what really is the best path forward? Our guest today has been with us before. He is an authority on the subject of marketing because he runs a marketing company in multiple worlds. And so he's going to have some great insights for us to help turn off a lot of the noise so we can focus in. So Jeff Charlton, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show. How are you?
I'm great, Frank. Thanks a lot. I appreciate the invite.
Wonderful. Well, I just want to dive in. I've been sitting on a couple of social media forums in recent weeks with the holidays, been a little quieter. And the volume on what works is, I've never seen it louder, and it's been loud for a while. You run a marketing company. What do you see that really is working and creating results for people?
Well, it depends on what you're doing. I mean, there is no one answer. The answer is there is no one answer. That's the answer. Okay.
Mm.
It is literally a moving target, and the rules change constantly, especially when you're talking about social media marketing. Anything, when I mean that, anything digital, basically. And when I talk social media, I'm talking about, Facebook, Instagram, which that's Meta. You've got Google pay-per-click. You've got, all the different other platforms that are the less popular platforms. And then, of course, you've got organic search in Google. And now we've got AI, which is a whole new world, which I'm sure nobody really knows how to navigate that yet, because that's changing at lightning pace every day, literally. And then, of course, you got what we do. Mainly what we do is direct mail marketing. That's what our main service is. I'm a printing company that specializes in direct mail, and we do millions and millions of pieces of mail every single month for mainly real estate investors, but we also do it for all other kinds of industries too. Pretty much anybody that wants to put a piece of mail in somebody's mailbox, we can do it. But for my own company, I use all types of marketing, including all types of social media. So I have a lot of experience in both being a customer and also providing that service for customers. And I can tell you, anybody that says they have it figured out, they're lying to you. Nobody has it figured out. Even us in direct mail, we're good at it, but what works today doesn't necessarily work tomorrow. And so you have to constantly be testing. In any kind of marketing, you need to establish a control, which is whatever you're doing today that's working, you keep doing that. And then you test against the control, the new idea you might have, whatever that might be. In direct mail, it might be a new mailer, it might be a new mailing list, it might be just a variation on a mailer. Maybe I want to try a different background color. And so I'll do test group A with the current control, which is what I'm using today. And test group B is I'll just change the background color, and then I'll mail a batch there using the same list, the same criteria and everything. So you only change one variable at a time. So you can measure the response and the difference in response. If you change more than one variable at a time, then you don't really know what affected the response. So that's not really a valid test. And you can do that kind of testing in direct mail. You can do it in social media, in anything. In fact, it's much quicker in social media because you can do an A/B split test and get instant results literally in the same day, depending on how much money you throw at the ad. You can get almost instant results in any kind of digital marketing. Whereas direct mail, it's not instant. It takes a little longer. You got to send out the mail. You got to wait for it to come back. You got to give it time. It's just not a quick thing in direct mail. But the concepts are the same. No matter what you do, the basic concepts are the same.
So, with AI in particular speeding up the world, it seems, as if we needed it to go any faster, it used to be you could test something and you could ride that wave of this marketing works for years. Now, and you were talking about a moment ago, where you could do A/B testing on social media ads and get your feedback right away.
Oh,
Do you foresee, like, with the pace of change happening in the world, that, hey, if I implement a marketing technique, plan on it lasting X amount of time, maybe it's 3 months, 6 months before, you know what, it's probably not going to work anymore? Are we to the point where what works has become a very short time window?
in the digital world, absolutely. And that's not new. I've been playing around digital marketing for pretty aggressively the last 5 years, and it changes so fast. It just, I don't know why. I think it's because I think just there's something's always coming up with the next new thing in digital marketing, whatever it might be, whether it's short. I mean, YouTube's a good example. YouTube, there's long videos, there's short videos. About a year ago, shorts were the big thing. And the definition of a short is any video under 60 seconds. And long videos are anything 3 minutes or more is considered long. And the between 60 and 3 minutes, that's kind of I don't know what that area is, but that's kind of they have longs and shorts in the middle. I don't know what they call that. But anyway, that was the thing. Shorts were the thing. We were told by the quote unquote experts that you need to produce 2 shorts a day, 1 long a week. And if you do that, you will, you're beating the algorithm in YouTube and you're going to really rise to the top. So we did that. And it was very difficult to do that. We created a content machine. Luckily, I have enough staff that I was able to do this. And all we did, I have 13 sales guys. I had 16, and we had what they call Mevo cameras. We're basically cameras that just tape them all day long, talking on the phone, doing exactly what we do right here. They have most of my sales guys are done digitally online. It's phone call sales, and phone calls or Zoom meetings. Anyway, we just tape them all day long in live calls, and then we would use AI to look at that video, and we put in a topic in AI and say, okay, I want to find some shorts about, I don't know, using headlines in direct mail. And then it would go into the AI would go in and listen to not listen, but the videos we transcribed into words, and then the AI could look at the words and go find all the video clips that mention whatever word we're looking for it to mention. And that's a way for us to kind of narrow in on the clips that were relevant to what we're trying to make videos on. Then a human being would have to go in and they'd have to cut that out and edit it and create these little short videos. But still a hell of a lot of work. But we were able to do it. Well, anyway, we did that for a year, and we went from just getting started in YouTube with no subscribers to 20,000 subscribers or followers on our YouTube channel in about a year doing these shorts. But then it suddenly stopped working. That means stopped working. It wasn't like we just weren't gaining any subscribers anymore. All of a sudden, the growth just stopped. And we've been stuck at 20,000 now for about 6 months. Well, I found out from another guy I do business with recently who's doing very well on YouTube that said, well, that's because your shorts are done. They don't want shorts anymore. We're back to longs. We only want long. And I said, why is that? And he said, because they found out the shorts doesn't give them enough time for the paid ads to kick in. And YouTube ultimately wants to sell paid ads like all digital marketers do. And so they finding the longs work better for making money on paid ads. So now they're back to favoring longs. Well, it's a heck of a lot more difficult to create long videos and short videos. So now we're struggling a little bit, but the content machine isn't so easy anymore. It wasn't easy before, but it was easier than it is now. Because the long video, you could just tape a guy on a 10-minute call. That's pretty boring. So you have to be a little more creative, and so we're doing more podcasting, things like this podcast. I will get a copy of this and I'll turn that into a long YouTube video, or maybe a couple of them, depending on how long this goes. We might cut it up into 3 or 4, 5-minute segments or something like that. And we'll do a little editing in the front and back and turn it into a long video, and then we'll post it on YouTube. And you just, you hope. Ultimately, you hope something goes viral, because that's where it really helps you to grow. But that's kind of a crapshoot. You never know what's going to go viral. I've never had one truly go viral, but I've had some we've had videos get 60,000, 80,000 views, which is pretty darn good because all of our followers are real estate investors mostly. And so it's a pretty tight niche. And he gets 60,000 views in an inch that tight. It's pretty good. But anyway, that's, I don't know. I forgot I'm kind of rambling here. I forgot what the question I was answering. I think you asked what's the best way or something.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who's actually about to talk about the going viral subject, so I'll make that introduction. That might be a value add.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, we had the best video we ever made was one of our first videos. We called it the mustache video. We literally tried to do a little comedy routine. It was like a Saturday Night Live type of little comedy thing. It was only about 3 minutes, but it was pretty funny. And we got that one. We did get this is about 3 or 4 years ago before we really got into doing YouTube too much. We got over the period of about a year, got about 250,000 views of that. That went really well. And we started using that for our paid ads too. And that's another thing, by the way. You've got organic and you've got paid. And it's really hard to build anything on any social media platform purely organically because these platforms all want to make money. So they want to encourage you to pay them for whatever you post. So you can get a little bit of traction organically. And yeah, okay, there's these YouTube stars. You hear about the guy that's making millions of dollars, that's got millions of followers, that did some stupid video that went viral. That does happen, but those are the exceptions. Most businesses don't go viral. It's a strategy to target the people that you're looking for, that are your prospects, and you have to usually pay to go after those people. And how you do that, it's kind of a crapshoot too. It's a lot of experimentation. You're never really sure what worked and what didn't work. You just know some things do better than others. And you try to take those things, especially in the video world, you try to take those things that did well and try to do things similar to that and hope you get a similar result. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't,
There's a lot of
experimentation. A little more duplicatable than video. You never know what's going to hit somebody in a video.
This is true. So you work with a lot of investors, kind of picking up off on that, where we're not, with direct mail, we never know what's going to happen. But do you find with your direct mail clients, do the principals come talk to you about it, or do you find a lot of these people have assistants? And the reason I ask is a common question of real estate investors is, should I be doing my marketing, or should I hire someone to handle it, whether it's in person, virtual, whatever? What do you find? Is it the assistants coming to your company often, or is it usually the principals?
100% or customers are the actual principals, the guy that owns the business. Most real estate investors are small operators that are only less than 5 people. Many of them are just themselves. So even some of the bigger people that are doing hundreds of flips do not have big staffs. I don't think we have a single customer that's got more than 20 people. So you can do a lot of real estate with a pretty small staff, especially if you're a wholesaler. And, if you're fixing flipping, that's a little different because that takes a lot more people usually. But people that are wholesaling, which is a large percentage of the real estate investor population, it doesn't take much to do a pretty good wholesaling operation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, does your team consult, and we'll use wholesaling as an example. Like if a wholesaler comes to you, small or large, doesn't matter. Like, does your team just say, okay, here's the order, fulfill, or do you consult and say, hey, we've seen our metrics are showing this kind of success rate with A, B, Z versus you might be proposing something, we haven't seen as much success. Do you take more of a consultative approach with your clients, or is it more just execute what's requested?
Oh, 100% consultative. That's our claim to fame, and that is our quote unquote secret sauce. Is the consulting, because we get free consulting. We call our salesmen coaches because they really do coach. They coach specifically on direct mail marketing for real estate. It's a very narrow world they're coaching on, but we absolutely do that because it is complicated. Marketing is complicated. It's not just direct mail. All marketing is complicated because there's a lot of things to think about. But direct mail is probably even more complicated than than social media marketing, because you have two factors in direct mail. You have the mailing list itself, and then you have the ad or the mailer. And whereas if you go to social media, you don't really have a mailing list. Now you do have the audience you're going after, which is similar to a list, but it's a little easier usually in social media to identify your audience because they help you do that. The various different platforms have ways to do that. You can upload your list. They can do lookalike, Lydia lists, things like that. And so they make it kind of easy. But in direct mail, finding a list is very important. And there are all kinds of list platforms. We own one called REI Smart Data. And you can go to a list platform, and there's some of the popular ones are PropStream or List Source. And yeah, that's a platform you can go in and type in your zip code and some filters, and you can get a list instantaneously. It's pretty easy to get it. Now, to get a list that's really what you're going after, that really works, that's not so easy. Okay, that's where the experience comes in. That's where the consulting comes in, because we not only do a ton of mail. We're mailing. Our run rate right now is between 3 and 4 million pieces of mail a month, mostly for real estate investors. Well, that is the real estate investor run rate there. The mail we do on top of that is outside of those numbers, and we track about 30% of that. When I say track it, we get tracking phone numbers. We have a division of our company that's a complete done-for-you division, where we not only send the mail, we answer the phones, we handle the incoming calls and do everything. And we do that, we have all the data on response data. And that's about 30% of our business. So about 1 million to 1.5 million pieces of mail a month, we track everything about those mail that comes in. So we know what list was used, what mailer was used, what response rates, what area that happened in. And we have a giant database that we keep, and we use that data to advise people that come in the door on what to do that works. And that's also a moving target. It changes. It's always changing. But there are trends, and direct mail doesn't change as quickly as social media. So we can see trends, and generally speaking, what worked for one guy will work for the next guy. And we're pretty good at predicting that. So 100% we can solve. And you have to think about a lot of things. You got to think about them, not just, okay, I need a list, but what are all the criteria to make that list effective? What is my buy box? What type of properties am I looking for? What zip codes am I looking for? What price range? Do I want owner occupied? Do I want absentee? There's hundreds of things you can think about. And all these different list companies have these different filters you can put in. But even that, it's how you put in the filters and all mailing lists in the real estate business come from property tax offices all over the United States. Well, all different property tax offices all operate independently, and they all have different ways they track things in their area. Some of them put in bedrooms and baths. Some of them don't. Some of them they all have different ways of assessing values. And so getting to know the different property tax offices and how the data is presented and what that data means is also a skill that only comes with time and experience and a lot of data. And so we do all that. So that's a long answer to we 100% consult. Now, yeah, we do have a small percentage of our customers that think they know everything, and they come to us with the list and the mailer, and they say, just mail it. I don't want your advice. Just do what I tell you to do. But that is a very small percentage of our customers. The majority of them come to us because they value the information we give them. And the people that trust us and do what we tell them to do generally get better results than the people that think they know it themselves. Because it takes a lot of money to do the trial and error testing to get all these answers. So what we're doing is we're using other people's money to give you those answers. And that's very valuable. I mean, it's millions of dollars get spent in literally testing mail, and we collect that data and we use that to advise other people. Now, I don't share secret sauces. If one particular customer has something they're doing that's different, we don't necessarily share that with other people, but we can, generally speaking, still push people in a direction that's going to give them a better level of success right out of the box before they can invest their own money to get their own testing. But even that, ultimately, I always say it doesn't matter what I think or what you think. It's what the market tells us. And we don't know what the market tells us until we put something out and test the market. And that's an ever-changing thing, like I've said several times already this morning.
So let me ask you something. I'm going to ask you two specific questions regarding this particular idea of the data analysis you're doing with millions of pieces. I mean, talk about valuable information. That's wonderful. The first question I would ask you is, you see some people say, you know what, niche lists are the way to go, smaller niche lists. And then some say, no, volume, broad scope. What have you seen to be more effective, if either?
Depends on how much money you have. Okay. Depends on many houses you want to flip. And this is true in whether it's real estate or any type of marketing. It's the same answer. We have two types of customers. We have the guy that's very small, got a limited budget. Maybe he's got $5,000 a month, and that's all he's got to spend on marketing. Well, you're going to get, depending on what you pick in direct mail, but you're going to get somewhere between 5,000 and 7,500 pieces of mail for $5,000. Well, if you're in so that's one, that's your budget. The second issue is, what market are you in? If you're in some small town in the middle of nowhere, that might be every possible record in that town. But if you're in Dallas, Texas, or Phoenix, Arizona, or Los Angeles, it's a giant market. 5,000 is nothing. Okay. There's probably 200,000 records in those markets you could identify that are highly likely to sell in any given month. So the answer to your question is, it depends on how much you want to dominate your market. We have customers that literally mail to every possible prospect in their market that fits their buy box. Okay. So the buy box always narrows it. So, in other words, most people have a range of, I only want to buy properties from 50,000 to 300,000, whatever the range is. That's part of it. Usually geography is part of it. Usually, it's bedrooms and baths. There's about 5 or 6 things that everybody has, which that alone narrows the list down from everybody in the phone book down to a much smaller list. And then of that much smaller criteria, how much of that do you want to hit based on your budget and how many houses you want to flip every month? So, but generally speaking, the more you can narrow your list down to be more in line with your target, the better it is. And in the AI world, AI is new to everybody, but in real estate especially, just in the last 6 months, everybody and their brother is using some AI algorithm to try to further refine the list, including us. We've developed an AI algorithm that works really well. We apply, what we do is we use these filters we're talking about to identify the list, and then we run it through this AI algorithm to further score the list. It gives every lead a score, anywhere from 0 to 800. And generally speaking, the higher the number, the more likely that property is to sell. And then depending on how much, again, back to budget and how big the customer wants to go, we will then throw out the lower numbers on that list and only mail to the higher numbers. Means you have to buy more data, but generally speaking, you narrow that data down more. But the guy that wants to mail, we have customers that mail 40, 50, 60,000 pieces a month. We have one customer that mails 100,000 a month. They're in more than one market because that's too big for any one market in most cases, but they're pretty much mailing to just about everybody. They've thrown out the dialing down because they can't, if you dial it, it's a balance between dialing down to really target, but I need volume. So if you need volume, you back off on your criteria so you can get more volume. Because the one thing about it, no matter how good your AI is, no matter how good your filtering is, you cannot predict when somebody's going to die. You can't predict when they're going to go into a nursing home or when somebody just decides to move for some unknown reason. Yes, AI takes all these different demographic characteristics, and there's all kinds of different AI algorithms too. Some people use, criteria based on creditworthiness and your financial status. Some people use demographics of areas and properties. Some people combine that. There's as many different algorithms for AI as there are different ideas. But somehow or another, they use the magic of the AI computer to put all these factors together and say, this property is more likely to sell than that property. But it's just an estimate. They don't know. It's a computer estimate based on a bunch of factors that you ultimately can't get. Nobody can guess when somebody's going to die. Now, yeah, you can say if a guy tends to be over 70 years old, he's more likely to die than a guy that's 20 years old. but you still don't know when that's going to happen. And you don't know when somebody that's not expected to die that's young does, and there still becomes a house available. So, and that's a big, in the real estate market, houses that are lived in by old people that move out for whatever reason, whether they get sick, whether they die, or who knows what reason, that didn't fix up their house for 30 years. That's a high percentage of the houses in the real estate market that investors go after. My son just bought one of those houses, and that's what happened. It was a lady, there was an old lady that died. It didn't go to probate. It just went to the family, but the house was trashed. They didn't want to screw with it. So we bought it at a wholesale price, and he's going to go and fix it up, and never went to a real estate investor, didn't show up on any list. It just so happened, it became available because we sent out a mail piece and we discovered it that way. So my point is that one didn't show up on any AI algorithm, but we still were able to get it through a direct mail piece. Because in that case, it was geography. My son was going after a specific geographic area, and we mailed pretty much everybody in that geographic area because that's where we wanted to find a house. We found one,
Excellent. So let me ask you, and you kind of answered one of my questions, was how important is predictive deal analysis? And I love how you answered it as it's helpful, but it's not foolproof because at the end of the day, no one can predict the future.
Correct.
But one thing I do find, and I've been meeting a lot of investors in recent months that are newer investors getting into market. They want to wholesale, they want to be bird dogs. Some may even want to fix and flip and hold. But what happens is there's this mentality, and I don't know if pervasive is the right word, but very common, where investors that maybe don't live in a Dallas, as you mentioned, Atlanta, where I live, a big metropolis, they feel like they have to invest or do these deals virtually in these big cities, oftentimes places they've never even been. So they really know nothing about it other than what they learned in school. And, oh yeah, Salt Lake City is the capital of Utah or whatever, right? I'm not even sure if that's accurate, so I might be wrong on that. But I tend to tell people, don't forget your backyard. And so for example, right now I'm working with a gentleman. He lives in a town just outside of a city of 75,000 people. And I'm like, there's deals in any town of 75,000 people. My question to you is, what is your suggestion to a lot of these investors that feel like they've got to go to the next multi-millions versus, hey, how do you attack your backyard where you might have 30, 40, 50,000, maybe even 100,000 people, where it's a secondary market, maybe even tertiary, but it's not small town. It's not 5,000 people. It's just not 6 million either. What are your thoughts?
Well, often the smaller markets are the better markets, especially from a response rate standpoint. It's really hard. There's only so many deals, and that's a key concept that you have to understand. There's only so many deals to be had. Again, I'm talking specifically real estate right here. There's only so many deals to be had in any given market, period. At any given time, the number of deals to be had is a finite number. So what affects response rates more than anything is the number of people competing for that finite number of deals. And so in smaller markets, there tend to be less people competing. So we tend to see higher response rates in smaller markets. And, that's another move. People always ask me, what's the average response rate? I can tell you our overall average on the 3.5 million pieces of mail a month is 0.9% nationwide. I have a number. Okay. But it varies anywhere from 0.2%, that's 0.2%, all the way up to 6%. Okay. So, why does it vary so wildly? Because the different markets vary wildly. And the competition has more to do with anything. So I totally agree. They're generally speaking, the guys operating in the smaller markets tend to make more money. They tend to get higher response rates, but they're limited. If they want to grow beyond that, there's only so many deals in the smaller markets they can make. So if they want to do more than that market will provide, they have to either go to a different market or go to a different market or expand beyond that somehow or another. Some of them just expand geography. Maybe they like being within 30 miles of where they live, but because they need to get more deals, they'll go to 100 miles where they live and they'll drive farther for the deals. but they're still kind of in their same area. Other people say, I'm going to go to a whole different city. I'm going to virtually wholesale in a totally different city. And there are a lot of people that virtually wholesale, which frankly amazes me. There are people that virtually fix and flip. That we've got one customer now that literally fixes and flips, full fix and flips, and never ever step foot in the house in a totally different city. And they do it successfully, and they do hundreds of houses a year. And that just blows my mind that they can execute that and make it work, but they do. But they've got people on the ground in those different cities that they trust that, they handle every aspect of the deal, and then it works for them. And so they're in multiple cities, and they just make the numbers work. So, it's the same thing. It's kind of the same answer that I gave you to the marketing question. What's better, bigger or smaller? It's kind of the same answer. Depends on what you want to go after. I do totally agree. The more you know about your area, generally speaking, people understand where they live better than any other area, because we all know, if we grew up somewhere, we know what streets are better and what neighborhoods are better, and what the prices are, and you just have a better feel for the whole thing. So you're in a much better position to make offers, assess whether there's profit in something without having to do a big research project. I mean, a lot of being successful in real estate is being able to move quickly. And you can't move quickly if you got to spend a ton of time and money just trying to figure out if there's profit in the deal. Well, the better you know an area, the better, more quickly you can do that. So you go to an area you don't know at all, a lot more risk. Now wholesaling, most people don't do fix and flips in areas they don't know. They do wholesaling, but there's still risk if you don't know. If you don't know anything about it. So I think it's a good idea to work your area 100%, even if you're in a big city. Even in big cities, people, the areas they live in or where they like to work a lot. Most of our customers pick certain geography, zip codes that they're the most familiar with, and that's where they like to buy houses. And so they'll give us specific areas to pull lists from.
Yeah.
Even in the big cities, they usually dial it in some degree. That very rare does somebody say, I want everything in this county.
Yeah, no, and in Atlanta we have at least 80 towns that make up Atlanta.
Yeah.
So there's going to the opposite end of Atlanta it's effectively a virtual market, even though it's Atlanta, it's hour and a half drive one way. I mean, at that point, it's basically a virtual market.
Exactly. So,
So let me ask you this. One thing I have found is there's been a big craze in recent years. First, there was short-term rentals, right, several years ago, which is still raging. Then you start hearing about mid-term rentals. Then you start hearing now about, the co-living, the pad splits. And then it's the recovery homes for people that were addicts or whatever, the situation may be. And just people thinking of all these ways to justify buying, maybe it's single family home or small multifamily in particular is where these are happening. Although condos can even be a case for STR. Do you find people are niching down their marketing for these different types of ways to justify how to hold a property? Do you find people?
Yeah, absolutely, especially in the last 6 months. The real estate market has been really tough the last 6 months. And, there's all kinds of speculation why, but we all, for sure, house prices are too high, interest rates are too high. And that's caused the whole market to come to a grinding halt, and things just aren't moving. It's hurting everybody, both real estate agents and investors. We've definitely seen, we were on an unbelievable growth curve for the last 3 years, and all of a sudden it hit a wall about 6 months ago, 8 months ago. And we've been able to maintain, we're not going down, but we haven't grown at all in the last year. And we're seeing that. And the word on the street, we participate in a lot of masterminds in the industry. One of the things we do to market, I believe in personal relationship marketing. I think with social media and everything, it's kind of a different topic, but it's relevant to marketing. Yes, this is a social media world, a digital world, and that can be very effective. But I am old fashioned. I'm 63 years old. I still believe we are human beings that value human relationships, and we build our entire company on human relationships. So a big part of our marketing is attending physical events for real estate all over the country. We attended about 60 events in 2025. masterminds, weekend events, all kinds of different events, local RIAs, all kinds of things. And we were face-to-face meeting people and talking to people. And in doing that, so I hear a lot of things. Pretty much the word on the street, wholesaling's gotten really, really tough, really squeezed. The margins are really squeezed. And so it's not people aren't doing it, but it's just a lot tougher. And so a lot of people that were doing a lot of wholesale, a lot of people that are exclusively doing wholesaling are starting to do more fix and flips or buy and holds or a combination of the three. Because yes, you have to, if you want to stay in the real estate business and one methodology is not working, you got to do something different. So
yeah,
the people that tend to be the most steady, that have been around for a long time, have some level of a portfolio where they have buy and hold. I think that's vital. And if you're going to be in the real estate business, to have some percentage of the business you do that you're holding and you're renting out and you're building that long-term cash flow through rentals.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's one of the things I've learned. Like one of our buy box things is, hey, I like short term, but I only want to do it in tourist areas.
Yeah, but a lot of guys do it. They'll use wholesaling as a way to find the good properties they want to keep. So they'll flip the wholesale the ones that aren't that great, but when they find that really good one, then they keep it. Mm-hmm. And they use the wholesale to also finance those deals. So maybe they got to wholesale 10 deals, get enough cash to keep one property, and that's what they do. And we've got a lot of customers that have just slow and steady. They've done that for years, and they built up a really nice portfolio of 50, 100 doors, 200 doors, and that's their steady cash flow. But they still flip a few houses, they wholesale some houses, and that's more of the immediate fast money type thing. Sure. And I think that's a smart strategy. The guys that only do wholesaling and that's all they do, they tend to come and go. They do really well, and then all of a sudden they're not doing so well. Because that is the only way you can be successful in that is you got to be closing deals constantly. And if the market changes and it gets harder, all of a sudden your deal flow might go way down. And if you haven't put anything away, you could be in trouble,
Yeah, no, for sure. So let me ask you this. Somebody comes to you and they say, Jeff, I've never done direct mail before. I've got a few $1,000s. We'll say 10 grand, just as a blanket number. And they want to market to, I don't know, let's say a couple thousand doors, just as an example. What do you suggest as number of times they should plan on sending a piece out to get some traction, to get results? And we all know the drill, right? A lot of people, they'll do direct mail once or twice, didn't work. We got a plan we need a runway here. What do you suggest?
Well, the rule of thumb in marketing, and I'm not sure where this data comes from, because I've heard this my entire career. My career is almost 40 years now in this business. But they say somewhere between 7 and 13 touches it takes, marketing touches, for someone to finally react and call you or do whatever, suddenly become interested in whatever your product is and be ready to buy that. That doesn't mean if you get zero on the first mailing. You do a mailing, but if somebody's got 10 grand, let me back up. We always, with every conversation, we start with we ask them a bunch of questions. We try to get a feel for where they're at. How many houses do you flip a month? Are you full-time, part-time? What's your buy box? What's your objective? How do you do business? All those kind of things. We learn all that. And one of the questions we ask is, what is your marketing budget? So if somebody, and it's a monthly marketing budget, if somebody comes to me and says, I got 10 grand and that's it, so I want to do something, what do I do? And if they think they're going to make or break their life with one $10,000 spend and that's it, they could, okay? But their chance of success is not great. Because you have to, marketing is a process. It's not one time and you're done with it. And so what I would say is, if after you come to me, I'd say, let's try to figure out what's the best way to get you the most leads to get a deal or two out of that $10,000, and then be willing to invest the money from that deal, part of the money from that deal, in the next batch of marketing, and plan for that going up front. Because if you don't plan to do marketing every month, you will not succeed, guaranteed. And Now, what does it take? Depends on this, back to what area you're in. Okay. This is where we use our data. We back into it and we say, first of all, do you know how many leads it takes you to close a deal? That's an important number. Now, somebody's brand new that's never done a real estate, they have no idea what that number is. Okay. So we kind of have an idea. If you're a decent closer, most people can close a deal with 30 leads. If you're a terrible closer, it might take you 60. Okay. If you can't do it in 60, you better get out of real estate. Now I'm talking direct mail leads. Now, if you talk about texting and cold calling, I hear numbers of over 100 leads to close a deal. I only know when it comes to closing, I'm talking direct mail. And the people that are really good could do it in 20 leads. So that's a big variance. So, but let's just say it takes you 30. Okay. So then you got to look at, in your area, what are the average response rates in your area? And we have some data on that usually. And if I don't have data, Let's be as pessimistic as possible. Let's use 0.5%, 0.5%. That means if you mail 1,000 pieces of mail, you're going to get 5 leads on that number. So if you need 30 leads to get a deal and 1,000 pieces of mail delivers you 5 leads, you need to mail 6,000 pieces of mail to get 30 leads, and hopefully you can close one deal. And then the last factor is how much you make on that one deal, because that's a huge thing. Because if it's 6,000 pieces of mail, again, it depends on what you mail and what your list is. But if you just use $1 a piece as an average, you're probably pretty safe at that. So 6,000 leads cost you 6,000. 6,000 mailers cost you $6,000, let's say. So how much are you going to make on that one deal? Well, if you make $10,000 on a deal, you spend 6,000 to make 10. Still a profit, but that's not that exciting. But if you make 20,000 a deal, or 30 or 40 or 50, then that can be pretty exciting. Okay. And then you got money. Let's say you make 20. Okay. Spend $6,000 to make 20. Would you be willing to take 6,000 of that 20 for the next tranche of marketing and then keep the rest? I don't know. That depends on how people do business, but I would think that would be something most people could do. And then as you get better at it, with direct mail, there's a tail, which means not everybody responds. When you mail something, this is kind of back to your question about how many leads does it take to get it, or how many touches? That's what we started with here. In direct mail, which is unlike other marketing, there's a tail, which means they might get your postcard or your letter. They don't always call you right now. They might save that and say, well, I'm not ready today, but I might be ready in 6 months or a year. Or maybe my sister needs this and I'm going to give her this postcard or whatever. Okay. People that do direct mail regularly will tell you they'll get calls 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road from people that kept their mailer and finally call them 2 years down the road. Those deals are some of the best deals you'll ever have, because if somebody saved your mailer for 2 years and they called you, they're probably pretty serious. And they're probably not talking to anybody else. So that's the tail, where my point to that is direct mail gets better and better over time. Because if you keep doing it every single month, you get more and more of those type of deals that come over time. And so how many touches? The answer is you will get people call you the first time they get a mail piece from you, because you may not have mailed them, but in the real estate world, a lot of investors, it gets back to that competition thing. They're all kind of going for the same kind of people. The out of state, high equity, absentee owners, everybody and their brother goes after those people. So most people are getting mailers from multiple people, or maybe they get cold calls, or maybe they get texts, or maybe somebody's knocking on their door. Who knows? Maybe they didn't get a mailer from you, but they might have been touched by other people. And maybe your mailer just got their attention at the time they happen to receive your mailer. So but generally speaking, what most people do and what we preach is set up a monthly budget, pull your list, and then try to hit those people at least a couple of times in the next 3 months. Okay. And then refresh your list every 3 months, which means take the same criteria, but then pull the list again. Because what will happen is some people will fall off the list and some people will be added to the list. But the majority of them will be the same people again. Then you mail again. Well, if you do that every month and keep doing ongoing, there'll be some people on the list you hit monthly or bi-monthly for maybe hit them 10, 15 times. until eventually they call you. It's again, it's a process. And the people that do direct mail year after year, they'll tell you, almost every one of our customers that are long-term direct mail people will say, bar none, direct mail pulls the best deals and the best overall ROI than any other marketing long-term. Because all the digital marketing comes and goes and it works for a while. Like cold texting and cold calling was super hot 2 years ago. Everybody and their brother was doing it, and it was working because it was kind of new. And all of a sudden, people are getting texts on their phone saying somebody wants to buy my house, and that was new to them, and they were responding. Well, then the government passed a bunch of laws that said you can't do that, and then it also got saturated because everybody and their brother started doing it, and before you know it, all these people are pissed off because they're getting 50 texts a day, and all of a sudden, what was unique now is a pain, and they don't like it, and so they ignore it. And then on top of that, there's lawyers going after people doing that. And before you know it, that's not, people still do it, but a lot fewer people do it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work nearly as well as it used to work.
And the sellers have the scripts memorized better than the VA is calling them.
Yeah.
So let me ask you.
Google thing, whatever. It's always changing. But direct mail, it's not exciting. It's boring. But one thing about it is, remember I said earlier that a large demographic in direct mail is older people. And older people like me, I'm a digital guy, but I'm also still very old fashioned. But everybody, even old or young, we all still go to our mailbox. We pull out the mail out of the mailbox. And we may walk directly to the trash can with that mail, but you're still flipping through it as you're walking. And you still stop and decide what you're going to keep and what you're going to throw away. So if you do a decent job of having a decent mailer that gets somebody's attention enough to at least keep it and maybe read it, that is way more chance you have of getting their attention than somebody seeing a million Facebook ads flipping through their phone 90 miles an hour. And it stays there. It's a piece of paper that they can save. You can't save a digital ad, at least not very easily.
Let's talk about that piece of paper real quick. The classic question gets debated and will probably be endlessly debated, but you run the company sending them all out. So you're going to know better than most. Who wins if you had to pick one, postcards or letters?
I will tell you, for the last year, the most effective mailer is a check letter. We have two forms of those. It's a fake check. We call it the soft offer check, which means it says, hey, I will buy your house for $50,000. But then there's fine print that says pending an inspection. And then you go on the inspection and you have the right to change that offer. We do that. We put that in a check in an envelope, a window envelope. We also do a pressure seal mailer, which is those kind that look like government notices.
Jeff,
I'm on a call.
thank you.
They look like government notices, and you tear off the edges. The pressure seal mailer. Both those are very effective, and they have been for the last couple of years. So I'm partial to letters in general, but I'm not saying postcards don't work. Different people, that's a key concept too in marketing. Different people respond to different things. So some people do better with postcards, some people do better with letters. Since we don't know, what I recommend people do is create a multi-touch campaign with multiple different types of mailers, including both postcards and letters as part of that campaign. You just never know what's going to work. And I will say this, in the postcard world, larger is better than smaller. And that's true in the letter world as well. But there's the small postcard, which is about that big, a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That's the smallest postcard you can mail with the post office, and then they'll still mail it. It's the minimum size. Those are the cheapest thing you can mail just because it's less paper, it's less postage. But it's also the smallest thing you get in the mail. And it's so small, it can easily get kind of lost in the mail. And in a stack of mail, it doesn't really stand out. It could stick to the one. You can literally flip through a bunch of letters and not even see it. So those don't perform as well as larger postcards or larger letters. I recommend either what we call medium size, 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, which is half of a sheet of. This is an the larger size. This is not a postcard, it's a trifold mailer. Here's an example. This is a self mailer, okay? But it trifolds down to a postcard size, and you can mail this for a letter. This is letter postage, actually, but it looks kind of like a letter, but it's large. It's larger than most things in mail, but it still mails for a reasonable postage rate. And it's a way to get somebody's attention. So I, generally speaking, always recommend larger performs better than smaller, but keeping the postage within reason. If you go to something that's a large envelope, it's called a flat, which I don't have one on my desk right now, but basically a large envelope is like a 9 by 12 envelope, something like this big. That's called a flat in the postal world, and that postage goes way up. And it does perform better, but the postage is so expensive, it's generally not worth the investment. So generally speaking, the answer is larger is better than smaller. I can't tell you postcards work better than letters or letters work better than postcards, but I will say the most overall, we send a lot more letters than postcards. So there's your answer. And we find guys tend to get better deals, not specifically letters so much as these check mailers.
Got it. Got it. One last question for you. The world of marketing keeps changing, and AI has now infiltrated so much of our world. What do you see happening with AI and marketing in the next, call it 12 months?
Well, I don't think, from a direct mail standpoint, there's no talk anywhere they've ever heard of them closing the post office. So as long as the post office is open and we have mailboxes, I still think direct mail is going to be an effective marketing vehicle. If, and this is a big if your product is large enough to justify the expense of the mail. And that's true of any marketing, but especially in mail. It's not cheap. So you better have a product you're making probably at least 10 grand per transaction, or you're not going to get a good ROI in mail. Real estate works for that. Okay. In most markets, people can make at least 10 grand or more, even wholesaling. In the bigger markets, that's why people like to go to the bigger markets. The super fast growing markets, people make usually at least 20 grand a deal wholesaling. And when they're fixing and flipping, it's upwards of 50 usually. So that easily justifies the cost of any kind of marketing, really. So where do I see the rest of it going? AI, well, that's a big unknown. I listen to a podcast all the time called the All In Podcast. I think it's one of the number one podcasts in the world. It's a bunch of rich guys that are tech guys, and they're talking about tech and marketing. That's all they talk about. And, the AI is the big discussion every week. They talk about AI a lot, and nobody really knows. The one thing they do know is the world AI is going to definitely affect a lot of people's jobs. But from a marketing standpoint, one of the big things is Google. Google, they're hurting right now in search traffic, to search money, because Google pay-per-click is when you click on a sponsored ad on Google, that somebody's getting paid. They're paying for that. Okay, that's an ad. That's ad revenue Google's taken in. Well, if you go to AI and do a search, which a lot of people are doing now, there's no click going on there. So Google's not collecting any money for that AI search. Well, they don't like that. Okay, so. And supposedly more and more people are using, whether it's ChatGPT or Grok or, all the different ones now that are out there. There's 4 or 5 major ones. That's hurting Google, but they'll probably figure out a way to monetize it, I'm sure. And I don't know. It's a brave new world. Everything's changing. I will say this, we're seeing more and more people, the PPL people, paper lead people, which is that's a type of marketing where you, instead of paying, like PPC marketing is pay-per-click marketing, where you pay for the advertising and everything and social media, and then you just get what you get. Well, PPL is somebody else is paying for that advertising, and then they get the lead and they sell you the lead. Well, we're having more and more PPL companies come to us who traditionally got all their leads from digital marketing, and they're wanting to do direct mail marketing to generate leads for PPL. Why is that? Well, because their digital marketing isn't working as well as it used to. I suspect it's AI that's having a major effect on that. I wish I had a good answer for you. I don't think anybody really knows. One thing I do know, though, is if you don't marketing, You're guaranteed to get zero response if you spend no money in marketing. So somehow or another, if you're in business and you want to get new prospects and customers, you have to market. And there's all kinds of different ways to do it. It's all good. It all works. People that say, you said earlier, they say, I tried it 2 times and it didn't work. All marketing works if you give it enough time. Now, some works better than others, and not all of it gives you the proper return on investment that makes sense for you. But you will get leads from any kind of marketing if you do it long enough. It's just how you handle those leads, and can those leads result in a profit? That's a different conversation.
Yeah, yeah. I love what you said. All marketing works. It's a question of you got to give it the time. And it kind of reminds me, if you go like on Instagram, people will say, here's the latest whatever that they're going to sell you. And some people will say, well, if you do that, by the time they're selling it to you, it's too late. But then sometimes now with AI, it's like, I'm an expert in AI. And you're like, well, how can you be an expert in AI? It's only been out 6 months or a year. This was earlier, a year or so ago.
I can tell you, even the experts admit they're not experts. So
exactly. But I think that's the key, is just seeing a marketing campaign through with an appropriate amount of time. That seems to be the toughest thing. And if we can just fully commit to fully executing, not just look for the quick fix or the quick, oh, it worked, we're rich, we have a much higher chance of success. So.
Yeah, if I had to look back my entire career, I started in my basement by myself with no money, no anything. My marketing, that was me getting on the phone, making cold calls, but I relentlessly did it, and it was not easy. And it would have been real easy for me to say, cold calls don't work, because most of them didn't work. Okay. But every once in a while, somebody talked to me and I got an appointment. And out of all those appointments, every once in a while, somebody said yes, and I got an order. So it's you have to stick with it for anything to really work. You have to give it, enough runway to really, and then relentlessly push. And no matter what marketing you do, the most important thing is a relentless follow-up. Because all marketing does is generate a lead. That's it. Once that lead's generated, the marketing company has done its job. It's then up to you to turn that lead into a sale. And that's a totally different conversation. But that's more important than the initial lead in the first place.
Yeah. Got to win the follow-up game. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, this has been just very delightful, very practical. I appreciate you sharing some insights from your perspective, where you're seeing people all across the country do all sorts of different things. And I appreciate you sharing your insights today. Thank you. And to all our listeners, if you want to do direct mail, especially if you're in real estate, you want to talk to Jeff, because he's got a team. You heard him talk about, they got a warehouse of data that they're constantly analyzing, and team members ready to help you with your business. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to his team for your real estate and business needs. I actually have a business outside of real estate investing that I think I'll be chatting with you about later. So,
baby.
Absolutely. So, Jeff, thank you again for joining us. Can you leave us with a final word?
Well, I said it earlier, whatever you do some kind of marketing. Every single month, you need to be putting the word out about your business to get people to raise their hand and say, you got my attention, and then follow up those people relentlessly. And if you do that week after week, month after month, you will succeed in whatever you're trying to do.
Love it. I look forward to continuing this conversation, Jeff. Thank you.
Great. Have a great day.